Somewhere in America right now, a hiring manager is dropping trash on the floor on purpose to see if you'll pick it up. Another one is timing how long you smile. A third rejected a woman because her palms were sweaty in a heat wave. 52 job interview complaints straight from the people who lived through them. And by the end, you'll wonder how anybody in this country gets hired at all. 1. The interview was a video call, and the candidate took it standing in the middle of an active construction site. Jackhammers, beeping trucks, a full symphony of heavy machinery behind every answer he gave. The manager asked him politely if he could move somewhere quieter, and that's when the guy turned on him. Any workplace with real energy should handle a little noise, he said, and pointing it out made the manager a snob. So the boss is supposed to scream over a concrete saw to hear about your spreadsheet skills. Would you take an interview from a place that loud? Or does that already tell a company everything? 2. The feedback email is the part that gets you. A woman applied, shook a hand, didn't get the job, and then received a written explanation. Sweaty palms mean a weak character and someone who folds under startup pressure. It was 95 degrees that day. The building's air conditioning had died. Every person in that office was damp, including, one assumes, the genius typing that email. She put the whole thing on social media, and honestly, good. Her body did what bodies do in a heat wave, and a grown man filed it as evidence of a broken spirit. 3. 10 minutes into a serious interview, the woman's phone rang, and she picked it up. It was her hairstylist on FaceTime. She held up a finger at the recruiter and dropped into a full conversation about her highlights and when she could squeeze in her next appointment. He sat there. Then he tried to wrap the meeting up early, and that offended her. He was being incredibly rude, she told him, and clearly had no idea how multitasking works. She was in that room asking a stranger for money, and she put him on hold for a color consultation. 4. He walked out over a piece of paper. Before any offer, before any number was even mentioned, the recruiter wanted to see pay stubs from his last job. Proof of what somebody else had decided he was worth. He said no. What he earned back then has nothing to do with the value he brings now. The recruiter called it market research, which fooled nobody. It was a shopping list for a lowball. He said it felt like a date demanding your full romantic history before the appetizers arrive. Who besides you needs to know what your old boss paid you? 5. Open floor plan, no walls. Every desk touching the next one. The candidate looked at it once, turned around, and left the building without a word to anybody. The manager was more insulted by the silence than the exit. The guy explained himself online later. That collaborative workspace from the job posting looked to him like a call center with nicer lighting, and he wasn't going to burn 30 minutes making small talk about a place he already hated. He knew in 3 seconds. Would you have sat through it anyway just to be polite? 6. Drive to a library. That was the recruiter's actual answer when she asked why a fully remote data job required her to own a reliable vehicle. If the home internet ever quit, she'd need to get in a car and go find public Wi-Fi. Not a hotspot. Not the coffee shop 3 doors down. A car insured and gassed on permanent standby for an outage that may never come. The job never once asks you to leave the living room, and the pay wouldn't have covered 1 month of insurance on the car they insisted she keep. 7. 40 minutes of poetry. That's what the recruiter got instead of a work history. He'd ask about her time in retail, and she'd answer with something vague and mystical about money and how time slips away from us. He'd rephrase. Another verse. Eventually, she set out her terms. Questions had to arrive as riddles, because the standard interview is something men invented to shut down a woman's instincts and her art. He never got one plain sentence about a cash register. He walked out of that room unsure whether she'd ever held a job in a store at all. 8. The manager said it felt like being sized up by something that hunts at night. His candidate had read that hard eye contact project's confidence, so he locked on and never blinked. Not once. 45 minutes of unbroken staring across a small table. The manager killed the interview early and got out of the room. The follow-up came on LinkedIn, where the guy grieved for a company too fragile to handle his dominant energy. He was sure he'd come across as a lion. He came across as the neighbor everybody later describes as quiet, kept to himself. 9. He wouldn't sit down. The lobby chairs looked cheap to him, and he wasn't risking a custom suit on upholstery like that. So he stood for 20 minutes, watching the staff walk past like he was deciding which ones would survive the restructuring. Then the interview started, and he spent the first 10 minutes reviewing the office decor. Not his work history, the decor. This marketing firm has met arrogant people before. This was a different species, and everyone agreed the building was better off without him. 10. A recruiter went through her private Instagram and came back with notes on her hiking trip. The pictures weren't styled enough. They didn't say anything about the brand she'd be representing. That's the reason she lost a corporate PR job, and she was furious. A weekend on a trail was never a campaign submitted for a future boss's approval. Somewhere a stranger in HR is studying your days off, hunting for one photo to say no over. Should a hiring manager get a vote on how you spend your Saturdays? 11. The cards came out of her purse midway through the interview and got dealt across the desk, one at a time. She was reading the company's future, and until the deck gave her something good, she wasn't answering another word about her own experience. The manager watched because what else can you do? Then she turned over ruin. She stood up, told him the energy in that office was cursed, and left. The cards stayed on his desk. Whatever HR training that man completed, no module covered this. 12. Boxes, shelves, a hand truck. That's the job, and it came with a 300-question personality exam. One asked whether he was more of a sunset guy or a spreadsheet guy. He finished the whole thing, then asked what that reveals about hauling freight. Management said they wanted a specific aura. His theory was less flattering. The quiz filters out anyone alert enough to notice it's nonsense. Since when does a stockroom need a personality profile? 13. Here's a rejection that makes no sense on paper. He knew too much. The recruiter laid out the fear openly that a man with his background would get restless and take a better offer inside half a year. So they passed on him first, to save him the trouble. He wanted the job. Less stress, less noise, and that's a call a grown man gets to make. His right on overqualified. It means we can't pay you what you're worth, and nobody wants to say that out loud. Ever been turned down for knowing too much? 14. Mom answered the first question about his work ethic. That's when the HR manager understood this was really happening. A 30-year-old man had brought his mother to a senior-level interview, and she didn't stay in the lobby. She took the chair beside him and spoke for him while he nodded along. The recruiter asked her to step outside. The candidate objected because his mother serves as his primary consultant and needed to be present for the salary conversation. His mother. At the salary conversation, drop your verdict on that one in the comments. 15. The dress code at this tech company is roughly whatever you slept in. So when a guy walked into his interview in a full tuxedo, the room stopped working. Bow tie, jacket, the works, for a job where the CTO wears sandals. They turned him down and put too stiff in writing, and everybody knew the suit did it. He'd only been trying to show the place some respect. That's the trap, though. Dress up and you're rigid, dress down and you're a slob, and the rulebook doesn't exist. 16. The invoice is the best part. Before they'd even schedule a second conversation, this company asked a graphic designer to produce an entire rebranding campaign. Logos, colors, the full package, about 40 hours of actual work for free. He built it. Then he billed them for it, which is the move most people are too polite to make. The reply had nothing to do with money. He simply lacked passion for the brand. Free consulting, pulled out of applicants and relabeled as a hiring step. How many hours of unpaid work would you hand over for a maybe? 16. They wired him to a lie detector to work a register at a sporting goods store. Real machine, real operator, real questions about whether he'd ever taken anything from an employer. He answered honestly. The needle disagreed, and that was the end of his application. Here's the part he found out later. Federal law bars most private companies from putting job applicants on a polygraph in the first place. So he sat there strapped to a machine, sweating over a question about somebody's missing stapler for nothing. 17. Foosball. That's what it came down to. A 50-year-old developer got passed over at a startup packed with people in their 20s, and the recruiter basically admitted the worry was whether he'd play table games and drink beer on Friday afternoons. Not his code. His social calendar. 20 years of shipping software weighed against his willingness to hang around an office built like a frat house. Somewhere along the way, being genuinely good at the work turned into a personality defect. 18. Her defense was that her brain simply performs better under a blanket with a bag of chips in reach, which explains the setup on the recruiter's screen. Pajamas, pillow, duvet, camera pointed up her chin from somewhere around mattress level. Senior role, serious money, and she took the call horizontal. He raised the professionalism thing carefully, and she pushed straight back. Working from home changed the rules. Comfort comes first. No apology anywhere in it. For some people, the wall between home life and work life didn't just crack, it came down and got hauled away. 19. 10 adults, 1 table, a box of plastic straws, and a roll of tape. Build the tallest tower. Whoever comes in last gets sent home on the spot. That was the group interview for a retail job, for the honor of scanning barcodes. One applicant stood in that room, watching grown men sweat over a straw tower, while a manager circled with a clipboard. He put his straws down and left. His words on the way out were that companies have started handling people like livestock. Would you have built the tower? 20. Somebody in HR wanted to see his 10th grade algebra grades. The man is 40, holds a master's degree, has 2 decades of leadership behind him, and he was interviewing for a vice president role. And the request on the table was his high school transcripts. He pointed out that how he handled solving for X in 1998 has nothing to do with running a global sales team today. The request stood anyway. There's a department out there convinced the real truth about a man is filed in a cabinet at a school he left decades ago. 21. He didn't get the job because of a candy wrapper. He only found that out afterward. On his way to the conference room, he'd walked past some garbage on the hallway floor, which the manager had planted there minutes earlier. He saw it. He also figured the cleaning crew handles floors, and that picking up random objects inside a stranger's office is a good way to look like a thief. He calls these hidden character exams what they are: a filter for people who do what they're told. Why does a hallway prank get more weight than a decade of work? 22. Nobody sends good news at 2 in the morning on a Sunday. His phone buzzed, and there it was. A rejection text, template wording, no name, no reason, nothing he could learn from. This came after 3 rounds of interviews, the kind that eat your evenings for a month. He figures that earned him a 5-minute phone call during business hours. Hard to argue with him. A company that ends things at 2 a.m. was never going to treat him like a person once he was inside. 23. Why do you want to work here? The oldest question in the room, and this guy answered it truthfully. He'd like to eat food and would prefer his power stay on. The clip went everywhere. The manager took offense, which the candidate never understood. Nobody develops a deep emotional bond with a mortgage company. Everyone at that table knew the real answer was rent, and the only thing being tested was whether he'd act out the little scene about purpose. He refused to do the scene. 24. He never officially found out he didn't get the job. Nobody told him. The company flew him clear across the country for a final round interview. They covered the flight and the hotel, dinner with the team, cloth napkins and everything. Then he went home and never heard another word. No call, no email, not even a form letter. He worked it out from the silence. And that's the insult. They found budget for airfare and steak, then couldn't spare 30 seconds to type one honest sentence. 25. He opened by announcing that a basement office with no daylight violated his basic human rights. The man is part vampire, he explained, so what he really needs is moonlight coming into the room. Also, the fluorescent tubes up there were frying his spirit and splitting his head open. 30 minutes of that interview went to how his output rises and falls with the moon. Then came his final question, which was not about salary or hours. He wanted to know whether the company would buy him a sun lamp. 26. The mug was a trap. Every candidate who sits down in that office gets handed a coffee. When it's empty, the manager waits to see who carries it to the kitchen and washes it. One developer didn't, and it cost him the offer. His side went viral, and it holds up. The place was locked down tight, badge readers everywhere, and nobody told a visitor he could go wandering into the staff break room. So he left the cup where it sat, like a polite guest does. The manager calls that a character test. What it actually tests is who'll wash his dishes for free. 27. Every time he asked what the job paid, they moved the conversation along. Round 1, round 2, round 3, always later. 10 hours of interviews and tests went by before a number finally showed up. It landed $20,000 under what the market pays. The ad had said competitive pay. That phrase was carrying an enormous amount of weight. He posted the whole timeline, and his point stands. The silence isn't shyness, it's strategy. Sink enough of somebody's week into the process, and walking away over money starts to feel like quitting. 28. She spotted her own work on the company's official page. 3 social media ads, live, running for the public to see. She had made them as a test project during the interview process, never got hired, never got paid a cent, and there they were. The test was never a test. It was real work for a paying client, handed to a candidate for free. That's spec work, and it runs on people who need a job badly enough not to push back. Somebody got billed for those ads. She just wasn't the one who got the money. 29. Somewhere in America, a sales manager is still sliding a pen across the desk and saying, "Sell this to me." This one had heard it enough. He picked the pen up, dropped it in his pocket, and told the man he could have it back for $20. Nobody laughed. The manager took it as disrespect, and maybe it was. A little. Sales today means figuring out what somebody actually needs, not running a bit borrowed from a movie. Test whether he can close a deal or don't bother testing. 30. The interviewer strolled in 15 minutes late and spent the rest of the meeting on his phone. The candidate sat there delivering answers to the top of a man's head. Then came the one question he actually asked out loud. It was answered in the first paragraph of the resume, right there on the desk. Never opened it. His read, "A company runs like whoever's leading the meeting, and this one was a mess. You're expected to bring your best to a man who can't be bothered to look up." 31. A financial analyst sat in an interview and got asked which pizza topping best describes his personality. He had to answer. Out loud. To another adult. And there's no winning it either, because every topping says something about you and none of it is good. The recruiter defended the question as a test of how somebody handles a curveball. His read was that it filled 4 minutes for a man who hadn't opened the resume in front of him. Years of building models that move real money, and it came down to toppings. 32. 4 hours of technical interviewing. Whiteboard problems, live coding, a panel watching every keystroke. He got through all of it and lost the job over his face. Not enough smiling. The feedback said a man that grim would drag the mood down and leave the office feeling like a waiting room. Nobody had a single complaint about his work. He was supposed to solve hard problems in real time, under a row of staring strangers, and looked delighted the whole way through. 33. A junior analyst job pays what junior analyst jobs pay, so the hiring manager was not expecting the negotiation to open with lighting. She needed a ring light installed at her desk, a real one, not a clip-on. She also needed the wall behind her rebuilt into something that films well, because the office made her look flat and dead on camera, and her following would notice. Told that entry-level hires don't get studio gear, she collected her things and let the room know the company was a relic. No job yet, and the sightlines were already a deal-breaker. 34. Creative thinkers. That's what the firm claimed it was hunting for, which is how a database administrator ended up being asked which dinosaur he would be and why. He's a grown man with a specialty and a mortgage, sitting in a conference room, fielding a question out of a coloring book. He said as much out loud. Then he went home and posted about it, and thousands of people showed up in the comments with their own versions. Ever answered one of these honestly and watched the room go quiet? 35. Not one question about his experience, not one. He sat down, and the man across the desk started unloading instead. The credit card debt, the divorce, which had gone nuclear. The lawyers, plural, all of them expensive. Then came the actual question of the interview. Any thoughts on how a guy might park some assets where an ex-wife can't find them? He came in to talk about a job and spent an hour holding a stranger's life together for free. He never did learn what the position paid. 36. The crunching came through the microphone for 40 straight minutes. She had a mixing bowl of cereal going, and every time a question landed, she'd point the spoon at the camera, finish chewing, and hand back a single word. Experience? Chewing. Yes. Strengths? Chewing. Teamwork. The recruiter kept his face perfectly still, which could not have been easy. He finally pulled the plug on the call, and her response was that she'd been body-shamed for needing breakfast. Not for the noise, not for the one-word answers, for needing breakfast. 37. The agency needed a Libra. That was the vacancy, apparently. Her work was strong enough that they told her so to her face, and it changed nothing, because the team already had a Scorpio problem, and one more would throw the balance off. So a graphic design job went to a birthday. 4 years of school learning color theory and layout, beaten by a chart in the back of a magazine. Imagine explaining that one to your landlord. 38. She asked a room of senior law partners about the nap policy. Nobody answered because there isn't one. No nap room, no meditation pod, no quiet corner with a blanket and a timer, and to her, that made the entire firm toxic. She said exactly that on TikTok afterward. 8 straight hours of work with no scheduled sleep ignores basic mental health needs. Across that table sat men who haven't slept properly since law school, listening to a stranger explain rest to them. 39. The product is cardboard boxes. Flat sheets, folded, taped, stacked on a pallet, sent out on a truck. And the interviewer wanted to know what he finds so exciting about that. He said he needed a job. True, simple, and completely unacceptable, judging by the silence that followed. He was supposed to describe some lifelong pull toward the world of shipping and storage. Not one person in that room would have believed it. You say it anyway, or you don't get hired. The whole ritual runs on a lie everybody agrees to tell. 40. There's a word that means young, and the word is vibrant. And a project manager with a full career behind him just got turned down for not having enough of it. He asked what it meant. The The recruiter said they needed somebody who could match the team's energy. Match it how? By answering messages at midnight and treating the snack wall as compensation. Vibrant is the perfect word for the job. It sounds like a compliment. It can't be measured, and nobody ever has to say the real thing out loud. 41. A company car. That was on the list, next to a $5,000 bonus just for signing, presented by a teenager applying for part-time work at a burger counter. He has never cooked anything for money in his life. His pitch was that he has a following online, so hiring him wasn't a cost, it was marketing. The manager laughed before she could stop herself. By that evening, he was posting about a business that punishes young talent and hasn't got a clue how attention works now. Meanwhile, the guy with 8 years on that grill was in back, making fries. 42. The word family came up so many times he lost count. A whole hour of it. How close everyone is. How they carry each other. How nobody here is just an employee. Then the definition landed. Quietly, near the end. Family means the lights stay on until 9. Family also means nobody files for overtime, because you wouldn't bill your own brother. One word, and the unpaid hours come out sounding like love. Ever been told you're joining a family and then met the family? 43. The company offered him a junior associate role, which for a man with no work history whatsoever is a generous opening. He was insulted. He'd made his target clear earlier in the interview, when he asked when the CEO intends to step down, because he wanted that chair by Christmas. His qualification was natural leadership. Born with it, he says, and in his mind that beats having actually done anything. He told them they were standing in the way of his future. And he meant this Christmas, not some Christmas years down the road. 44. The snoring started somewhere in the middle of his logistics background. Real snoring, from the man holding his resume, about 3 minutes in. He kept presenting for a while because stopping felt rude, then cleared his throat hard enough to rattle the desk. The manager jolted upright, looked around the room, and asked whether he was done yet. No apology, no explanation. And he's right to be furious. If they can't stay conscious for 10 minutes while he's at his sharpest, picture what they'd bring on his first Monday. 45. 5 minutes into the conversation, he asked which holidays are actually paid, and the recruiter took it as a warning sign. A man who wants his days off in writing clearly isn't committed to the mission. This is a software company. The mission is licenses and renewals. His mission, as he put it, is having a life that starts when the workday ends. One side of that table was talking about devotion. The other was doing math on his own weekends. 46. Hiring managers have a private tiebreaker they call the beer test. They picture sitting down for a drink with you, and if the picture is boring, that's the end of it. An accountant got knocked out by exactly that. His numbers were fine. He simply didn't look like fun on a Friday, and that was enough. He wasn't applying to be anybody's friend, he was applying to make sure the books balance. Run a company that way, and you end up with 30 people who laugh at the same joke and miss the same mistake. 47. The renovation was the sticking point. He'd looked at the doorway, decided it faced the wrong direction for his energy, and stopped right there in the hall. Walking into a room like that would drain him, he explained, so the company should really fix the layout before he'd consider working there. Then, since he was already helping, he suggested moving the CEO's desk into the building's wealth corner. This role had been open for weeks. The manager had budget approval, a job description, and a candidate who refused to come inside. 48, barely above minimum wage. That was the number for a job demanding 5 years of experience, and it only came out after a 20-minute victory lap around the office. Kombucha on tap, beanbag chairs, a mural somebody's nephew painted on the wall, a ping pong table with a nickname. All of it presented as though it counted as pay, which is exactly the idea. No landlord in America takes rent in Kombucha. The perks were there to soften the number before the number arrived, and it didn't work. 49. The CEO spent that entire interview being growled at. Low, constant, coming from under a chair, and nobody at the company had been warned it was coming. The candidate had brought a pit bull, unannounced, and called it emotional support. When staff explained that the office doesn't do animals, he accused them of discriminating against his lifestyle. The growling he had an answer for as well. The dog reads energy, and something in that room was clearly bad. On that one point, everybody present agreed with him. 50. A third-grade teacher picked up the phone and found a bank's HR department on the line. They wanted a character reference for a woman she last saw when the woman was 8 years old. This was billed as a comprehensive background check, which apparently now covers conduct at recess and whether you sat still during story time. Her adult work history was right there in the file, employers and phone numbers included. They went hunting for the teacher anyway. If a teacher still remembers you 2 decades later, that's rarely good news. 51. Asking someone to turn their camera on is now aggressive behavior. That's the word the recruiter used, along with entitled, after the applicant made the request midway through a Zoom interview. The recruiter had kept her camera off the whole time. A gray square with a name on it, firing questions out of the dark, while the candidate sat there lit up and fully visible. Watched by someone who wouldn't be seen, and then scolded for mentioning it. 52. Every company now advertises unlimited vacation like it invented rest, so he asked the question that spoils it. How many days does the average person here actually take? First came the defensiveness, then an honest number. Under 2 weeks. Nobody dares go longer because the work just stacks up while you're gone. And here's the part nobody says out loud. Unlimited means nothing accrues, which means when you quit, they owe you nothing. It reads beautifully in a job ad. That's the entire point of it. 52 interviews, and almost nobody walked out of them with a job. So settle this one for me in the comments. Who's actually worse here? The managers running secret trash tests and sweaty palm rejections, or the candidates showing up with tarot cards and their mom? Pick a side and defend it. If you've got your own interview horror story, drop it below and hit that like button and subscribe for more.